If you want to keep up with the transfer portal, you can go do that if you want yourself. But you can just follow Max_Olson, OLSON. He has constant changes, additions to the portal, and those who are going wherever they're going to play their ball next. And he joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio from theathletic.com. Max, I asked this question earlier, and I don't know, do you think that when the transfer portal was developed, for example, the running back at University of Louisiana is going to follow Billy Napier to Florida, but do you feel like when the transfer portal was developed, that they even thought through the fact that players would start leaving when coaches do, not just to leave elsewhere, but to possibly follow coaches to where they're going? Is that a trend that is of any concern to you?
You know, I think it's really the one-time transfer rule. I think that's the thing that opened the door. I mean, we always had transfers before. We just made it a lot easier to keep track of them now with the advent of the portal. But I really think it's the one-time transfer rule. I think in the past, for a lot of players, it was a tougher decision about, okay, I probably should wait here and finish my degree before I move on. If you're not happy with your situation, or in some cases you leave early and you try to get a waiver. But I do think that once you kind of cross that bridge, and I can understand why the NCAA felt like they had to, because the previous rules were too restrictive, and because all these players were just trying to get waivers to do a one-time transfer anyways, and the waiver process got totally overloaded, and they weren't really built to deal with all that. I think the one-time transfer rule is making it a lot easier for these players to just say, you know what, I'm a little bit unhappy with my situation, or I want more playing time, or I think I'd be better off somewhere else, and they make a change. And I think there's probably a lot of players that, there's some situations certainly where coaches are telling players to leave, but I think by and large, you're seeing a lot of players that want to bet on themselves. And especially in that case, you mentioned a lot of Group of 5 players that believe that they're good enough to play at a Power 5 level.
Do you try to figure out because you track this very well, when somebody comes in, do you have to make do the mental exercise of where might they go, or is that too much to keep up with given how many people are jumping in every day?
It is a lot to keep up with. I think that, when you look at when a player appears in the portal, for me, it's kind of just doing what all these coaches and staffers are doing. Is you look them up, you look at, what's the resume they put together so far in terms of games played, starts, production, what kind of recruiter were they? And I think certainly right now there's a real instant gratification in this stuff, where when a player goes in the portal, you see a lot of times within 24 hours, they've got a ton of offers if they're a big time player. So yeah, a lot of the job in tracking this is just trying to keep an eye on who are those players that could really blow up through this process. And, a lot of times you find out pretty quickly. Certainly, when a Caleb Williams or a Jackson Dart goes in the portal, it's going to be a big deal. But, certainly there are players and proven experienced players at every position right now that are making moves. And it's a lot to keep up with every day.
So, Max, where's Caleb Williams going?
Well, if you'd asked me Monday, I'd say USC, and I'd say probably almost a done deal. But it seems like now things have opened up a little bit more. I know ESPN reported yesterday that he has spent some time visiting UCLA. I could see him potentially taking more visits, but I think USC is still the front runner here. I'd be surprised if it's not SC. And in some ways, maybe the Jackson Dart decision to go in the portal kind of tips that. But certainly, I thought this was probably going to be done on Tuesday or Wednesday, and here we are on Thursday. He still hasn't made his decision, and now you see, his teammate Mario Williams is taking a visit to Texas as well, and looking at some of his options. So I thought USC had this locked up. Maybe they still do, but it seems like Caleb Williams and his family are still trying to explore a few more options.
Is it almost to the point now, like tax deadline, with a lot of schools going back in session, where you're going to see this flood this week? Is this kind of like the week that everything happens?
I think we're going to see a lot of it going on this month. You're right about that. And every school is a little bit different in terms of when their semester starts. I know some of them are, on the 18th next week, or coming up here pretty soon. So you've got some of those deadlines for players to get in. And I've seen some deals where I talked to Cameron Ward, the quarterback from Incarnate Word, I believe on Tuesday night. And, asked him, when are you getting to Washington State? And he said, I enrolled, flying out tomorrow. So, once these guys get it done, they head out to school. And so, there's a lot of this going on these next few weeks here. And then, probably could see it slowing down a little bit until we get through spring ball, and then you've got more players and more grad transfers who have a better sense of where they are on the depth chart, probably trying to make moves after that.
Max, there was a national championship game this week, believe it or not. I don't know if you caught that, but earlier this week, Georgia gets the win over Alabama. Seems like we've already kind of moved past that, but what were your thoughts on the Dogs and their comeback and, beating the big evil machine that is the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, really, really impressive. I thought it was, at least for me, I felt like it was satisfying to watch the team that I felt like was the best team in the country, end up on top there at the end. I thought it was just the way that Georgia responded. You have that kind of that real crisis in Atlanta in the title game where you feel like, oh man, they've been so dominant for 12 games, and then they go play Bama and get spanked, and you wondered, okay, how are they going to respond to that? Or is this a team that, because of the quarterback situation they've got, this is a team that just has like that one weakness that could really cost them in the biggest games. But nothing but respect for Stetson Bennett, what he was able to do in the clutch in that game. And, the best, that Georgia defense, you can measure it a bunch of different ways, including in stop rate like I do. But, in terms of the points per game, that's the best defense we've seen in college football in 10 years. And awesome finish by them to hold Bama to field goals and shut them down. And, I thought that was, certainly an ultra talented team that was very deserving.
Outside of never having to pay for a beer again for the rest of his life in Georgia, Stetson Bennett can come back, Max, and he can play, but do you think he will be legitimately in a quarterback battle in the spring because JT Daniels healthy, Brock Vandagriff there as well, and whatever else happens with Georgia in the next couple of months?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see if they add Caleb Williams. It's hard to sit here today and kind of project how these teams are even going to look for 22 with, I know people do their way too early rankings this week, but to me that seems really, futile. I mean, sure, you feel good about a team like Baylor that's getting a lot of guys back, but man, these rosters are so fluid that it's just hard to know who's coming back with what. But, I think Bennett probably is, he's probably in great shape to start off, but, I would think this would be a moment where JT Daniels has got to think about whether he needs to transfer. And I know he's already done that before, but, it certainly, wasn't his year that despite how well he played at the end of 2020. And so I'd be curious to see if he's moving on or if any of their backups are moving on. And that's kind of what you expect now that, Georgia's got to keep recruiting good ones like Vandagriff, like you mentioned. They got another good freshman coming in, but, Stetson Bennett, to his credit, did all the right things this year to take that job and hold on to it.
Max, do you think the Big 12 is going back towards more of an offensive philosophy? I mean, I know Dave Aranda is still sticking around, and there's other coaches in the league who are defensive-minded, but, I mean, you look at, the move with Kitley and the Western Kentucky offense that's going to be following Joey McGuire to Lubbock and Sonny Dykes at Fort Worth. We know Sark's an offensive guy. I mean, Venables is a defensive guy, but they're bringing in Jeff Lebby. Do you think we're going to see more of the up-tempo, air raid kind of return of offenses to the Big 12, given, kind of the defensive look they had this past season? What do you make of maybe the style switch that's upcoming?
Yeah, that's not a bad theory. It's not, and it certainly – when you watch that Big 12 title game between Oklahoma State and Baylor, you have to sort of take that as a representation of where the conference is at. That just two defenses just absolutely brawling in that game, and offensively, you had some challenges, but it was really defense that won the day there by Baylor. But I think that I'm certain Brent Venables wants to win with defenses, even though he hired Jeff Lebby. I know that, he's been one of the best in the country for a very long time, very consistently. And I'm curious to see how he approaches this conference. I'm sure he's got a great plan. Certainly Sonny Dykes' offense coming to TCU with Garrett Riley, I think will be a lot of fun. Joey McGuire wants to play good defense in Lubbock, but you're right, Zach Kitley just built the best passing offense in the country this year. And I think that, I'm sure they could add some wideouts and stuff, but I know they like the quarterbacks they've got. So I'm interested to see how quickly that offensive transition can happen. But yeah, we may be heading back in that direction. You're probably not wrong, and that's because when the things were that way, then you saw the correction. You saw the programs like Iowa State that wanted to win by playing defense and running the ball, and certainly that worked for a long time at K-State. So, yeah, it'll be curious to see kind of which style wins out there.
Max said they cannot get together enough. They can get together. They just can't come up with any, I guess, something that they're going to get forward when it comes to the college football playoff expansion. What in your mind in the end is going to happen? Are we going to still get to 12, but it's just going to take a while? Are they going to miss this window? What do you feel like might happen?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're going to miss this window, and that's really frustrating. But certainly, it doesn't appear the way things are going around, the way that these leaders are looking at things. It does seem like the Big Ten and the ACC are pretty aligned in putting a stop to this, and I think that's to their detriment. But that's also why they tried to put their little alliance together to try and vote together. And the Pac-12 seems to be more willing to expand this and be proactive and stuff. But yeah, I think we're all getting tired of them getting together and having meetings and saying, "Oh man, we're so close," and then nothing happens. So it does seem like things are going to stay very contentious here, and that I don't know. I want to be optimistic, but it does seem like it's going to take many more years before we get to see that 12-team playoff.
Max, I personally look forward to the lengthy report of the committee on committees, committee rules, meeting on meetings on meetings. I mean, I think that's riveting stuff that college football fans
you
love.
mean Congress?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing it the same way, and I think we've talked about this before, and I've asked other analysts. Like, it seems like they're throwing out these minuscule possibilities of why automatic qualifiers or why this should happen or why that should happen, and it just doesn't seem. It just seems like they're waiting to get their back scratched for whatever reason. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and you certainly when you take an issue like this, and I'm sure that realignment, some of those things exacerbate it, but certainly this is the past year has forced all these commissioners to work together and figure out the things that they don't agree on, and it's aggravating. I'm glad that that's not. I'd almost rather throw all of my time and attention into the portal and these other issues going on in this sport, because just the administrative, political part of that, I just find very frustrating.
No, I'm with you on that. I find the portal way more interesting than the bureaucracy and all the legal tangling and all that. But, Max, we hadn't talked to you since this move happened. We're speaking of all these transfer portal moves, but what were your thoughts on Adrian Martinez to Kansas State and also what Nebraska's been up to as well?
Yeah, from talking to folks at Kansas State, they are really fired up about Adrian Martinez, Smokey. You hear that? Can you believe that? It's true, though. They really are. They love the kid. When you hear his story, when you hear what he's gone through and put up with for 4 years, I think there's a ton of excitement about what he can bring, not just as a leader, but then as a dual threat playmaker when he's healthy. And certainly, we all know that the big part of that is staying healthy. And he dealt with a bunch of injuries this year. I'm curious how the shoulder, how he's doing on that. Will he be able to go through spring fully and all that? But man, they are very optimistic about what they've got in Adrian Martinez there and the way that he plugs into their offense. And I do think overall, it's probably a better situation than if he had stayed in Nebraska for another year, because at least they have Deuce Vaughn. They have they have to replace some guys up front, but they have a better O-line than Nebraska, and they've got the ability to run an offense that isn't entirely dependent on the quarterback doing everything. So excited for him, and hopefully he can stay healthy. And then, Nebraska picking up Casey Thompson. I mean, I did get a lot of people asking me, like, well, who's better, Casey Thompson or Adrian Martinez? And it's kind of hard to say when they both were injured last year, and that affected the play. But, with how crazy things are right now, you at least have to say Nebraska got the guy they wanted, and I think that's really important right now, because they need Casey Thompson to work. They need him to be the guy, and as much as they like some of their younger guys and want them to compete, I think this change of scenery, I think, is probably a good thing for Casey Thompson, and I'm sure he's very motivated, because he had to hear all last year how Hudson Card was better than him, and now he had clearly the Texas staff believed that Quinn Ewers is better than him. So I'm sure he shows up to to Lincoln ready to prove himself all over again.
Adrian Martinez is one of the nicest, probably guys you would love to see have success, and so many times they were close to a big win, but so many times they didn't finish, and a lot of times, unfortunately for him, he was the reason because of a turnover. But I hope he has a spectacular year at Kansas State, and I think in Chris Klieman, it's much more of a structured place, and obviously they've got direction, and so I wish him the very best. Max, thank you, man. Appreciate your time. Now you and Father Duty, the daycare, the Max Olson daycare thing. This has become almost like the transfer portal for you, right?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, one time I asked you, can you come on the air? He goes, well, I got daddy duty today. I love the fact that having that baby and being a part of that. I'm so proud for you to be able to enjoy that part of your life.
I appreciate that. It's you guys know the job is nonstop, and so there's sometimes when, if the kid's home from daycare for a day or not feeling good or whatever, it throws your day off a bit, but it's also a ton of fun. So, yeah, gotta definitely play catch up here a little bit. My wife's been awesome about, taking the lead during the season here, and now you're right, gotta put the dad hat back on and do my job here.
Enjoy every second of it. Thank you, Max. Appreciate your time. That's Max Olson, theathletic.com, College Football Thursdays.